With the offseason approaching, I asked you guys on my community tab, just give me a hot take for your favorite team this offseason. And today I picked one out for every single NBA team, and we're going to talk about them. I'm going to see if I'm going to agree with you or if I'm going to disagree with you. So we're going to start things off with the Washington Wizards, and this one comes from Beyblade. He says that the Washington Wizards rebuild starts to shine, and they get the 11th seed in the Eastern Conference next offseason. Now, I do think a lot of factors are going to go into the Wizards offseason that could determine that next year. Who are they going to take with the 6th overall pick? Is that going to be a Jeremiah Fears? Is that going to be a Derek Queen, a Kasperi Shakuchonis to add to this fold? I think they need to add some type of playmaking / passing point guard for the young core. I think it would be better off than having one of those guys than Jordan Poole being the point guard. What if they trade Jordan Poole? But to be honest with you, I don't expect this Wizards team to be the 11th seed in the Eastern Conference next year and just miss out on the play-in tournament. I think they're going to be between that 12 to 14 range. I don't see them being the worst team in the Eastern Conference next year, but I still think they have a little bit of ways to go unless we see a massive year 3 leap from Bilal Coulibaly or year 2 leap from Alex Sarr. I expect those guys to get better, but I think this is a little bit too optimistic. I'm sorry to bring you down here if you're a Wizards fan, because I don't expect the Washington Wizards to be a buyer by any means this offseason, and they missed out on one of the blue chip prospects in this year's draft with the lottery. This one's going to come from Joey, and he says that the Warriors finally get an actual center, and yeah, I'm going to buy this hot take. I don't really think it's a hot one, because I expect them to add some type of big man this offseason. They were in talks to get Nikola Vucevic at the deadline. I think they can revisit those. I think they can call up the Utah Jazz, see what Walker Kessler's price is going to be, or the Charlotte Hornets with Mark Williams. I don't expect to see Jonathan Kuminga on this roster next year, and I think that is going to be a major trade piece for the Golden State Warriors this offseason. They could look to flip Jonathan Kuminga for some type of center, either being a veteran or a rim runner or somebody that could just space the floor. I think getting Nikola Vucevic would be great for this team. He could be a good mentor for Quinn Post, who is a nice floor spacing big next year. And I think just Nikola Vucevic is like an upgraded version of Quinn Post right now. But yeah, I do expect Golden State to make some type of center acquisition this offseason. JV says here about the Minnesota Timberwolves that they need a complete retool of their starting lineup to truly contend, including trade of one or both of Rudy Gobert and or Julius Randle. Now, I don't think Rudy Gobert gets moved this offseason. He did sign a 3-year extension with the Minnesota Timberwolves last offseason, and while I do think there would actually be somewhat of a market for Rudy, I don't think they want to trade away the anchor of this team's defense right now. They're obviously not moving Anthony Edwards. I don't think they would like to move Jaden McDaniels unless it's for like a premier number 2 to Anthony Edwards, but I do expect Julius Randle to be gone next year in some way, shape, or form. Maybe it's an opt-in and trade. Maybe he just opts out and leaves. And I do expect them to also move guys like Nickeil Alexander-Walker, maybe in a sign and trade. I think Naz Reid is going to be back, but Dante DiVincenzo could definitely be traded. Same with Mike Conley. Would they be willing to part ways with one of the young pieces like a Terrence Shannon or Rob Dillingham? I wouldn't be surprised if Minnesota becomes somewhat of a Kevin Durant team in those sweepstakes this offseason. They would have the matching salary and the veteran talent to get it done, and I do expect Julius Randle to be on a different team next year. Next one about the Thunder is from City. He says that the Thunder are going to do nothing in the offseason besides draft. And I think it is going to be a very tame offseason for the Oklahoma City Thunder. They are in the NBA Finals. They're going to be the favorites to win the NBA Finals, and everybody is under contract for next year's season. Yes, some guys will need new contracts like Chet, J-Dub, and Shea, but I don't expect them to make a massive change up this offseason. They're keeping Dort, they're keeping Caruso. Maybe they try to shed Kenrich Williams' money just because the owner has never paid the luxury tax, at least since 2012. So I don't know if they're willing to go deep into the tax, or at least into the tax for the 2026 season. They may have to make a move on the margins this offseason. And maybe that also comes at the expense of not drafting somebody at 15 or at 24 as well. Maybe they try to consolidate those first round picks, trade 15 and 24 for a future first round pick that may have more appeal down the line. But yeah, it's not like I expect a massive change this offseason for the Thunder. Maybe if they lost to Memphis in round 1. Merck says here for the Phoenix Suns that they flat out stretch Bradley Beal's contract, then waive him once they realize they're not going to be able to trade him this offseason. Man, would this be a rock bottom scenario for Phoenix? I don't think they end up doing this. I know that it has been floated around in rumors before about them potentially waiving Bradley Beal, but he's owed $53 million in 2026 and $57 million in 2027, especially if you trade KD this offseason and you don't get back your first round pick in 2026. I think Bradley Beal can be the number 2 scorer on this team at an efficient level. We've seen him do that in the past, and I just think he's a better number 2 scorer in this league than a better number 3, just because of the shots he's going to be able to get in his own possessions, and he's not going to be more of an off-ball player like he's been the last 2 years in Phoenix. We all know that they definitely regret this trade, and they would like to redo this in hindsight, but this man is owed $110 million over the next 2 years. If you're stretching this out for 10 years, you're going to have to pay $10 million in dead money for 10 years. No team is going to do that. You might as well just eat it right now, and maybe he's going to waive his no trade clause to a different team, but that is going to be a big factor for Phoenix this offseason because right now they're a second apron team, and this is still one of the worst contracts in the league. Life says here for the San Antonio Spurs that they will not make a big trade this offseason involving either Stephon Castle or the number 2 overall pick. For those who know how the Spurs operate, we'd rather make smart trades and develop our young guys, and both Castle and Harper seem like great players to have as a backcourt. I also don't expect San Antonio to trade for Giannis Antetokounmpo this offseason. I do think there's a better chance that Giannis is a Buck next year than on a different team. And I think if it's going to be a different team, it'd end up being Houston because I think they have a little bit more to offer, or it's just going to be a surprise Eastern Conference team. So I think San Antonio will still revisit the Kevin Durant talks. Apparently it almost happened at the trade deadline. Went to school in Texas, over in Austin, a few hours from San Antonio, and you're going to get somebody that is one of the best 3-level scorers in the NBA, one of the best mid-range shooters, an elite 3-point shooter, a perfect veteran to have in that locker room as well with Victor Wembanyama. We saw how great that was with Chris Paul in the locker room last year. And if you're trading for KD, you don't have to give up Castle or Harper. It could be around Soin or Vassell or some of the draft picks that they own in future drafts or the 14th overall pick this year. I don't expect them to make a massive trade involving Castle or Dylan Harper this offseason. Speaking of the Rockets, that Gabriel mentions that until we get numbers on the potential Tari Eason and Jabari Smith Jr. extensions, because that whole 2022 draft class is extension eligible this offseason, Jabari Smith Jr. should be untouchable, and Tari should be the one dangled in a KD trade. Honestly, this is shocking me a little bit just because I do think if you're trading away Tari Eason instead of Jabari Smith to make the money work, you'd probably have to include a larger salary. Maybe it could be Jock Landale, but maybe it has to be Reed Shepherd. Would you rather move Reed Shepherd and Tari Eason or the high upside value in Jabari Smith Jr.? I still think Jabari Smith can be a really good player in this league. There's a reason why he almost went number 1 overall back on draft night in 2022. He was always going to be a little bit more of a project than Paolo Banchero and Chet Holmgren, but he just never had the touches. A little bit of injury luck, unfortunately, has been dealt his way over the last few years. I think if Phoenix can get back Jabari Smith Jr. in a Kevin Durant trade, that is a home run for them. I don't think he's going to be untouchable this offseason. It says here for the Toronto Raptors that they are going to go all in and trade for Domantas Sabonis and make the conference finals, kind of what the Pacers did last year with trading for Siakam. I think if Domantas Sabonis ends up getting traded, I mean, they could be a dark horse team. You could send Jakob Poeltl and some matching salary going out and maybe an intriguing young player or two. You can have a lineup of Quickly, Barrett, Ingram, Scotty, and Domantas Sabonis. That could be really fun offensively, and I think that could be worth an opportunity, or at least the idea of bringing in Sabonis to Toronto. But I just think you're now leveraging your core so much into the 5 that I just mentioned. That is going to be a team that is over the first apron with that core right there. They're probably going to have to give up somebody like Grady Dick or Ochai Agbaji or Jacoby Walter as well in that trade. Probably more draft capital as well. So I don't think that would be wise for Toronto. It sucks we didn't get to see Brandon Ingram play a single minute this year with Scotty Barnes. So we have no idea how he's going to perform this year in Toronto and how that's going to look with Scotty and RJ and Emmanuel quickly. I think there's a better chance that RJ Barrett gets moved this offseason. I would not be surprised. I would definitely be surprised, though, if Toronto went after Domantas Sabonis. So for the Pistons here, I have back-to-back ones, one from Tackett, one from Josh. First one is the Boston Celtics trade Jaylen Brown to the Pistons to free up cap space and to rebuild their roster. The Pistons give up Tobias Harris and future first-round picks. And then Josh says, similar to Tackett, getting a big name to pair up with Cade Cunningham. The Pistons trade for Devin Booker and become the 2 seed, and Cade Cunningham finishes top 5 in MVP. I mean, Devin Booker in Detroit would be a match made in heaven with Cade Cunningham, and them operating together in the half court, I think would work so well. I also think if Devin Booker were actually to be made available this offseason, Detroit would get outbid by other teams because you'd probably have to trade Jaden Ivey, Ron Holland, and Asar Thompson. And I don't know if that's wise for Detroit. They definitely overachieved last year, and I don't want them to get ahead of themselves right now and mortgage the whole future for maybe a few more playoff wins next year. I like them building the core that they have right now, building up more assets, and then maybe you can make that big time trade when you're ready to go after somebody like Devin Booker. If you're trading away just salary filler and draft capital for Jaylen Brown, honestly, I'm on board with that. I don't disagree with doing that. I just think if Boston is trading away Jaylen Brown, they want a premier pick in this year's draft or future draft classes. They want a really good young asset as well. And I don't think it would be wise for Detroit to trade away all your young pieces around Cade Cunningham and draft capital for Jaylen Brown. I think Detroit is building something special right now, and I think they should just make moves on the margins and see how this core progresses now that Jaden Ivey is going to be healthy and Asar Thompson can now be healthy for a full season. DL says here for the Pelicans that they are going to trade Zion Williamson and benefit from that trade becoming a top 10 seed next season. Now, I think with or without Zion Williamson, they're probably going to be in that range of the 10 seed next year. The Western Conference is just loaded, and the Pelicans had the worst injury luck this year in the whole NBA. They're not going to have DeJounte Murray for the first few months, and I think all signs are pointing to Zion Williamson still being a Pelican. They sent him to the draft lottery. Reports are coming out that Joe Dumars wants to keep Zion Williamson in the fold, Dumars being the new executive after they fired David Griffin. I think Zion is going to be the starting point guard for this team until DeJounte Murray comes back. We've saw in the past how effective point Zion can be. They have a plethora of really good wings right now in Murphy, Herb Jones, CJ McCollum, and Jordan Hawkins. I think they'd be more likely in like a Domantas Sabonis sweepstakes this offseason, and they're going to try to add a bigger name rather than trading away Zion. Eli says here for the Pacers that they are going to be the team that lands Giannis Antetokounmpo, and they're going to have to give up 3 first-rounders. So I think Indiana could have an enticing offer for Giannis Antetokounmpo. I always thought they were going to be an interesting Kevin Durant team this offseason, but like the Thunder, their ownership does not like to pay into the luxury tax, and that's what's going to happen with the Pacers this offseason. And I'm recording this ahead of game number 5, so I'm not sure if they're in the NBA Finals yet, but they're up 3-1 on the Knicks. They're probably going to be in the NBA Finals, and I do think they're going to have to make some type of notable move in the offseason. I doubt they're going to extend Benedict Mathurin, so maybe he gets traded. Maybe they trade away Jarris Walker while he still has some value in this league, or maybe they move on from TJ McConnell to get off that contract going forward. I just don't think that they're going to be in the Giannis Antetokounmpo sweepstakes right now, especially because I don't think Milwaukee wants to trade him within the division. Austin mentions here that the Denver Nuggets go all in for Kevin Durant, maybe Michael Porter Jr., Peyton Watson, Julian Strawther, and first round picks. And if I'm Phoenix and I get offered that deal, I am taking it. I think Michael Porter Jr. can help you in the short term. Watson and Strawther can help you out in the long term. You definitely need Peyton Watson to work on the offensive game, but he's still just 22 years old. I still think there's a ton of potential in Julian Strawther. And if you're getting first round picks, which Denver can't trade any first round picks in the next few years, so now I'm getting a 2030, 2031 swap from Denver. That entices me as well. I also just love the idea of Kevin Durant playing off of Nikola Jokic in Denver. You're going from Michael Porter Jr. to Kevin Durant. That is just one of the more insane upgrades. And now Jamal Murray is your third shot creator. Yeah, that could make Denver a title team in 2026. The King here says about the Brooklyn Nets that Nick Claxton gets traded to a contender for an unexpected guy who will be a top 2 on the team next year. Either Michael Porter Jr., Jonathan Kuminga, Jaime Jaquez, Cole Anthony, RJ Barrett, or Devin Vassell. Now, if we went through each one of those guys, I don't think Nick Claxton is going to be traded to the Denver Nuggets unless this is some type of 3-team trade. So I doubt that Michael Porter Jr. is going to be a net next year. I think Jonathan Kuminga is definitely a realistic player that could be a Brooklyn Net next year, and we'll pay him maybe a 3-year deal in the offseason. I don't think Jaime Jaquez is going to be traded for Nick Claxton. Miami doesn't need a big man. Orlando could be in the market for Nick Claxton to look for an upgraded rim-running big man at the 5 spot. Maybe Toronto as well with RJ Barrett, and RJ Barrett could definitely get his numbers up into the mid-20s in scoring if he was going to be the number 1 in Brooklyn. I think it's more likely that Claxton gets traded to a team like the Lakers, and they're getting back guys like Dalton Knecht or Rui Hashimura. For the Dallas Mavericks, this person mentions that the Mavericks are going to add Cam Thomas in free agency and finish top 6 in the West despite the injuries. Now, I don't know if Dallas is a team that needs to add somebody like Cam Thomas. They definitely need another shot creator when Kyrie Irving is going to be out for the first half of the season, but I think they can get somebody better in the short term than have to pay what Cam Thomas is going to go for this offseason. This would also have to be a sign and trade as well, since Dallas does not have the cap space to absorb Cam Thomas, so they would have to send Brooklyn either first round picks or maybe somebody like a Jaden Hardy or a Max Christie, and I don't think that's going to be worth it for Dallas right now. I'm just excited to see Cooper Flagg as like a number 2 scoring option next to Anthony Davis to start off the season. For the Orlando Magic, this person mentions if Orlando trades for Trae Young this offseason, they will make it to the NBA Finals next year. Now, if you could trade for Trae Young and not have to give up Jalen Suggs, and we could have some type of Trae Young, Jalen Suggs, Franz Wagner, Paolo Banchero, and whoever at the 5, either being Wendell Carter, Mo Wagner, Goga Badatse, that is a team that could definitely be playing in the Eastern Conference Finals next season. The Indiana Pacers, the New York Knicks are in the Eastern Conference Finals this year when everybody thought it was going to be the Cavs and the Boston Celtics. I do think it'd be very tough, though. You would have to probably trade away Wendell Carter Jr., Jonathan Isaac, Cole Anthony, a bunch of first-round picks, Anthony Black to get this done. I'm not sure if Atlanta also wants to trade away Trae Young within the division, but it wouldn't be shocked if Orlando was linked to all those point guards like Trae Young, John Morant, and LaMelo Ball this offseason. Anime says here for the Lakers that they're not going to make any moves this offseason because Giannis is going to pick them when he's going to be a free agent after LeBron retires. Now, it is still a little bit until Giannis is going to be free agent. He's not going to be a free agent till the 2027 offseason. So at least 2 more years he's going to be playing under his current contract. And maybe the Lakers could be targeting that for sure. Maybe they're not going to sign anybody to a long-term deal this offseason or trade for anybody that is going to dip into the 2028 season and onwards. But honestly, I think you're putting way too many eggs in this basket. If you're trying to win with LeBron right now, you have to make moves this offseason. You have to get some type of rim protecting big man, either being a Walker Kessler or a Nick Claxton, somebody we've mentioned multiple times in this video. I don't think the Lakers stand pat. I think they would get a lot of criticism if they do, and Rob Pelinka isn't going to just stand by that. So now we have a double one here for the New York Knicks. Unknown says that the Knicks are going to fire Tibbs and go to the finals next year. Walrus says that the Knicks trade one of their big 5 for role players and maybe draft capital to help fix one of their biggest weaknesses, which is their lack of depth. Now, I think these can go hand in hand. I just wonder what the Knicks would actually do this offseason if they were going to make a big trade, because you're not moving Brunson. You just traded for Bridges last offseason. You just extended Anunoby. Does anybody want to realistically pay that price tag for Karl-Anthony Towns in that contract going forward? What is Josh Hart's value on a team not named the New York Knicks? So I just don't know what direction they're going to go in. I think if they do end up losing to the Pacers in 5 or 6 or even 7, Tom Thibodeau could be on the way out. I think they need somebody with a different offensive philosophy, somebody that can trust your bench throughout the regular season. It's okay not to play your starters 38 minutes a night on a random game against Chicago in February when you can give Landry Shamet and DeLon Wright some minutes. So now they have somewhat of a workload, or maybe a high leverage workload, where now they feel comfortable in the playoffs. You're seeing how much depth has brought OKC and Indiana and even Minnesota a little bit this year, and that's something the Knicks don't have. There's been some sparks because of the bench at times, but you really can't put that much faith into them when they barely played throughout the regular season. So I think it's more likely that Tibbs gets fired. They try to improve on the margins with this bench unit rather than making a massive trade this offseason, but I also didn't think they were trading for Karl-Anthony Towns last offseason, and they did that in the last weekend of September. NT says here for the Sacramento Kings that they're going to flip it around and go to the Western Conference Finals. Now, I love the optimism, man, but I just don't see that happening. The Western Conference is too loaded, and on paper right now, you basically have the Thunder, the Wolves, the Spurs are going to be a lot better next year. The Rockets, the Warriors, the Lakers, the Clippers, the Nuggets, the Blazers, the Mavericks are all going to probably be better than the Sacramento Kings next year. I think they could do somewhat of a retool. I don't think they need to tear everything down, trade Sabonis, trade Levine, because I don't think they're going to get great value for those guys because of their contracts. I think they could try to maybe make a lateral move from DeMar DeRozan. You try to improve the bench, add some big man depth, get a true point guard, and this team could maybe end up as a playing tournament team next year as a 7 or 8 seed, and maybe you make the playoffs, and now you at least have another playoff to show for it with this new look core in the post-De'Aaron Fox era. This person says about the Jazz that they should not make any big moves this offseason. Team chemistry is becoming more and more important, and you see it with the Pacers and the T-Wolves, who made it to the conference finals because of the connection of their team's production. If the Jazz continue to make big moves and shake up their locker room, they'll be stuck in a tanking cycle. And this person isn't wrong. Continuity is an underrated factor in terms of team building in the NBA, and sometimes it's not worth it to trade guys just to trade them. But for me, honestly, if they get a good offer for Lauri Markkanen this offseason, I would think about trading him just because he's 28 years old right now. The contract is fully kicking in. And if a team gets desperate enough to add somebody that can shoot high 30s from 3 and high 40s from the field and is a good ball handler for somebody at 7 feet tall, I would do it. I would lean into the youth movement even more. I don't have to trade away guys like Walker Kessler. I want to continue to build around him at the 5 spot. I would extend Walker Kessler this offseason. I just think anybody that doesn't fit this timeline, that isn't going to be a main contributor when you're out of this rebuild, you should trade them away. So yeah, I would move Markkanen, I would move Collins, I would move Sexton, and I would move Clarkson. I know you don't want to be bad for another year, but I think it's going to be worth it in the long run. Whooper says here for the Charlotte Hornets that they don't trade away LaMelo Ball. It seems to be a hot take with the majority of the people talking about him being traded soon. They're going to ship Mark Williams off to LA like planned, trade Bridges and Nick Smith on draft night for a pick like the Pels at 7. Unrealistic, but a hot take. Yeah, I don't think you're getting the 7th overall pick for Nick Smith and Miles Bridges. I don't think Nick Smith proved enough in year number 2 to have that much value by any means. He really disappointed me this year because I was super high on Nick Smith Jr. coming out of Arkansas. And I don't think that the Hornets are going to trade LaMelo Ball either. I do think they could probably bring up that Mark Williams trade idea yet again. They have to pass the medicals, and that might be a little bit awkward, but I think there would be a robust market if they made Mark Williams available. Would that mean Charlotte would take a center at number 4? I still think you take VJ Edgecombe. You build through this team right now, but I would also trade away Miles Bridges. Basically get everybody off that 2022 team that is still here outside of LaMelo Ball. Prodigy says here for the Miami Heat that they will have to consider blowing it up this offseason. Now, I'm intrigued about the Miami Heat doing a little bit of a sell-off this offseason. I would test the market for Tyler Hero before that extension comes, because the Miami Heat like to extend their guys before they have to. We saw that with Jimmy Butler in the past. We recently saw that with Bam Adebayo and that massive contract extension he got last offseason. I would see what you can get for Bam, but I would like to hold on to Bam at all costs, and I would consider retooling this team right now, unless you're going to go the other route and try to add Kevin Durant and have a big three of KD, Bam, and Tyler Hero for a 2026 playoff run. Just think about being bad next year. You do own your first round pick in the 2026 draft, which is going to be a loaded class. There's a lot of teams that finish behind you in the Eastern Conference standings that might be better than you next year. Teams like Toronto, teams like Philadelphia, and then you're going to have Orlando being better next year. And unless Giannis gets traded out of Milwaukee, every team that made the playoffs in the Eastern Conference is at least going to be fighting for a playoff spot next year. And now you don't have Jimmy Butler for half a season. I think the Heat should be more interested in going into somewhat of a retool, like I said with Sacramento before. AJ says here for the Atlanta Hawks that they should trade for a star or to keep the faith on prospect development. So I guess, yeah, that's just both routes that you can end up going. You can keep Zachary Reese-Shea, Dyson Daniels, Jalen Johnson. All right, you could see what the Milwaukee Bucks want for Giannis Antetokounmpo, and would they be interested in Jalen Johnson and Zachary Reese-Shea, or Jalen Johnson and Dyson Daniels, or something like that. Daniels can get extended this offseason. I expect that. But for Atlanta, I think I would stay the course as well. You have 2 first-round picks in this year's draft. Your young guys got better last year. You have more depth now after the DeAndre Hunter trade. And now Jalen Johnson can be healthy for a full year. I'm going to get year 2 Zachary Reese-Shea. I like what I saw out of Onyeka Okongwu taking more threes at the end of the year and Mohamed Gay's development. I think Atlanta could be just fine to make the playoffs next season after losing in the play-in this year. AD says here for the Memphis Grizzlies that they're just going to run it back with the big 3, and they're not going to make any major move as some expect. Ja's going to play 60-plus games and leads the Grizzlies to the conference finals. I don't know, man. I don't love this Grizzlies depth as much as I did a few years ago. I think they found a great backup point guard in Scottie Pippen Jr., but the Marcus Smart trade was a massive failure. Jake LaRavia and David Roddy back in that 2022 draft was a massive failure. And you found the diamond in the rough in the 2024 class with Jalen Wells, but you also don't have many tradable contracts as well outside of John Conchar and Brandon Clark, and that can get you somebody around $20 million. I think they need to make some type of notable trade this offseason. It doesn't have to be trading somebody to the big 3, but they desperately need another perimeter defender out there since Dillon Brooks is no longer on the team and hasn't been for 2 seasons. This person says for the LA Clippers that they are one good backup big man away from being title contenders. And honestly, I think that could be a massive upgrade for the Clippers. And they have some tradable contracts this offseason. Would they be willing to move off of Chris Dunn after they're probably going to re-sign James Harden? Would they move Bogdan Bogdanovich's $16 million expiring contract? You have an all-NBA caliber center right now and an all-defensive caliber center in Ivica Zubac. You just need the center to give you 12 to 15 really good minutes a night coming off the bench. And I think they could look to find that either in free agency or the trade market. And I wonder if they could pick up somebody like Isaiah Jackson or Day'Ron Sharpe, one of those younger guys that has high potential that's going to be a restricted free agent from the 2021 draft class. This person says about the Boston Celtics that they actually improve even after trading away Drew Holiday and Kristaps Porzingis. Now, you know what's kind of crazy? Like, if you trade away Drew Holiday for PJ Washington and Daniel Gafford, which has been a rumored trade, you make it better right there as it is around Jaylen Brown. And if you could trade away Kristaps Porzingis for just any serviceable piece next year, or maybe a draft pick, I think there is a chance the Celtics could make the playoffs without Jason Tatum next year, given the depth they already will have, because you have Jaylen Brown, who will see if he can be an all-NBA guy as a number 1 option. You have Derek White, who's an elite role player and an elite starter at this point. Peyton Pritchard just won 6 Man of the Year, and you're going to get depth back from Drew and KP. The Celtics could easily make the playoffs next year in this weaker Eastern Conference. Realistic says here for the Cleveland Cavaliers that Darius Garland is holding the team back. Donovan Mitchell is going to request a trade if the Cavs don't reach the conference finals, and Evan Mobley won't be a superstar until he's playing center full time. Now, I agree with 2 things here, actually, outside of the Donovan Mitchell requested trade. I don't think he's going to request a trade this offseason, and I also don't think Darius Garland is holding the team back, but I think they're going to be more open to trading away Darius Garland this offseason, and I definitely agree that Mobley can really fully unlock his superstardom if he plays the center full time. So I think it's very likely that Jared Allen actually gets traded this offseason. They're going to be a second apron team, and I think this team would be better off to have Evan Mobley as the starting center for next year's playoff run. Adam says here for the Chicago Bulls that they're going to use a package of first-round picks to add a star around Josh Giddey and Kobe White. Oh man, I hope Chicago doesn't do this. They should be going in the other direction. They should trade away Kobe White this offseason for a really good haul, given his contract right now and his production over the last 2 years. I just don't think it's worth it. This team does not have the assets to go out and get somebody like a Giannis Antetokounmpo. Maybe they could trade for a Zion Williamson, and you never know in the Eastern Conference, but I don't think there's a point in doing that right now if you're Chicago. You've been in purgatory for the last few years. Try to get a top 5 pick for once next year. Justin Jones says here for the Milwaukee Bucks that Giannis will win another championship next year, but as a member of the Cleveland Cavaliers. Now, I think the Cavs can offer Milwaukee a very enticing return for Giannis Antetokounmpo. What if they said, we'll give you Garland, DeAndre Hunter, and Jared Allen for Kyle Kuzma and Giannis Antetokounmpo? Or what if it's Evan Mobley for Giannis? I do think Milwaukee could get a better package from Cleveland than like 26 other teams. Maybe San Antonio and Houston can realistically offer a better deal. Probably not even San Antonio, to be honest with you. Maybe it's just Houston. I just don't think Milwaukee, if they trade Giannis, which feels like it has a 50-50 chance right now, they're going to trade him in the same conference, let alone the same division. This person mentions for the Blazers that they are going to pull a 2025 Rockets regular season run in 2026. Now, over the last few years, we've seen teams like the Orlando Magic, the Houston Rockets, the Detroit Pistons not have super high expectations and really catapult with their young core in a regular season. That could be the Blazers next year. I am very high on the Blazers, and they were a very good team after the All-Star break. Denny Avdija continued to progress on this team. Scoot Henderson showed flashes. Shaedon Sharpe looked healthy. Toumani Camara just ended up on an all-defensive team, but they got to make some moves this offseason. I think they should trade away Anthony Simons, try to see if any team wants DeAndre Ayton or Jeremy Grant, and go forward with this young core. If you make the play-in tournament next year, great. You lose as a 10 seed, fine with that going forward. You have some nice draft capital as well, but I think this could be more likely a 2025 Rockets regular season in 2027. And lastly, PJ says here for the Philadelphia 76ers that the Sixers will trade away Paul George without having to trade away the 3rd pick in this year's draft to do so. Yeah, unless you're trading away Paul George for Bradley Beal, you probably also have to give up additional draft capital, given that Paul George has 3 more years left on this max contract rather than Bradley Beal's 2. So this is the worst contract in the NBA right now, in my opinion. Yeah, you don't have to give up the 3rd overall pick, but are you willing to attach Justin Edwards? Are you willing to attach those Clippers picks going forward? Because it's going to take a little bit for a team to absorb that Paul George contract right now. But I do think that they're going to either keep the 3rd overall pick or maybe trade around there in the top 5, top 6, top 7. I don't think that Paul George at number 3 for Kevin Durant trade is happening. So that's gonna be for me. I hope you guys did enjoy. Let me know what you think of these 30 hot takes that I mentioned down below. Let me know what you think that I talked about for your favorite team as well. Drop a thumbs up if you guys did enjoy. I'll catch you guys in the next one. Peace.